Welcome to Center Ice, the Hockey Alberta podcast, home to all things hockey in our great province. Now, here's your host, Ted Emmett.
Hello and welcome back to the Center Ice podcast. I'm your host, Ted Emmett. Thank you for joining us once again. Really excited for episode 21 as we're just on the heels of the 2022 Olympic Winter Games in Beijing, and at least when this comes out, just at the start of the 2022 Paralympic Games, also in Beijing. So of course, that's really what this episode is going to be all about. And I guess if podcasting were an Olympic sport, I'd say we'd have a gold medal winning roster for this one, and pretty bad joke to start off the podcast, but that's okay. We'll just roll with it. We're going to kick things off with an interview from former Team Alberta netminder Emerance Maschmeyer, fresh off her gold medal with Canada's national women's team. And we're also lucky enough to catch Zach Lavin from Canada's para hockey team just before he took off for Beijing for his first Paralympic Games. And with a bonus third interview this episode, Kara Spady sat down with three-time Olympian Meaghan Mikkelson. I know my gold medal roster joke was pretty bad, but at least it was true. So with that, let's get right to our first guest. So joining us now is a very decorated former Team Alberta goaltender, beginning with a gold medal at the 2011 Canada Winter Games for Team Alberta. She's been a mainstay in the crease for Team Canada, winning gold at the 2012 IIHF World Women's U18 Championship, and has made 5 appearances in the Women's Worlds Championships, including a gold medal in Calgary in 2021. And of course, as of just a few weeks ago, she can add Olympic gold medalist to her resume. I'm of course talking about Bruderheim, Alberta's own Emerance Maschmeyer. Emerance, I'm sure your life has been nothing short of a whirlwind since coming back to Canada, so thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, a huge congratulations. I think it's safe to say every Canadian hockey player's dream is to one day wear the maple leaf on their sweater at the Olympics and to have a gold medal hanging around their necks. So even just a short while later, has it really sunk in yet for you that you are an Olympic champion?
I mean, it's been surreal. Like you said, it's every Canadian hockey player's dream to wear the maple leaf and to win an Olympic gold medal. And I mean, every day it's sinking in a little bit more, but it's a dream come true. It really is.
And you're no stranger to high pressure situations. Again, going back to your intro, you've represented Canada and your province too on a lot of different occasions, even dating back to winning the Alberta Winter Games way back in 2009. Of course, have to throw that in there as well. So you've represented your province on the national stage, your country numerous times on the national and international stage. You helped lead Harvard as well to the championship game of the 2015 NCAA National Collegiate Women's Ice Hockey Tournament. So starting from your roots right here in Alberta, how much has all of that experience really helped you prepare for what is arguably hockey's biggest stage at the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've had, the opportunity to represent my province and my country many times. And fortunately, I've gotten the opportunity to play in many gold medal games. So, it's funny because lots of people have asked me, how hard is it to focus on one game at a time, especially when you know what's on the line and you have to win every game. And I'm like, it's just been kind of part of my career. You focus on one shot at a time, one period at a time, and one game. And I think all the practice that I've had leading up to this point had really prepared me well for the Olympics.
And again, with short-term competition, another big difference, I guess, than just playing for a team is having to come together as a team very quickly. But in the case of the Canada's national women's team, you're probably very familiar with a lot of these players. So you kind of have a leg up in that sense going into the games. But with all the veterans on the team and this being your first Olympic experience, how did you lean on them and how did their experience help you prepare for both on and off the ice, really what the Olympics would bring?
Yeah, so I think what many people don't know is we were actually centralized together as a team this season. So we got together actually mid-July for our World Championships, and then we stayed together all season leading up to the Olympics. So we're fortunate enough to have the support to do that. We played together in games against junior A hockey teams in BCHL, the AJHL, and then we also played against US throughout the year, and also went down to Helsinki to play against Finland as well. So we've had a lot of time to, come together as a team and figure each other out. So when it came to the Olympics, we were ready to go.
And short-term competition, again, is a best on best. And I can only imagine what it would be like to compete in the Olympics against the very best of the best. So as far as the on-ice competition went, was it, if at all, different from any other competition you've been a part of?
I think that's what's really cool about the experiences. You dream of the Olympics, and it's, kind of this myth, and you can't really, like, a mystical monster or whatever you want to say. It's like, how is this going to feel when we get into this competition? It's kind of honestly like the lead up into the Olympics. We were all like, what will this feel like once we step on the ice? And what's crazy about it is once we got on the ice, it felt like any other event. And we realized how prepared we were. And I know some of the girls had played in the Olympics before, and some four, but many of us it was our first Olympics. So we just didn't really know what to expect. And honestly, what we found out was when we stepped on the ice, it was just like our World Championships, just like a Four Nations, like any other tournament we had experienced before.
And I'm sure, you had a very busy schedule, obviously, and with the obvious state of the world right now, things might have been a little different than any other Olympic year, but still, how much of the overall Olympic experience were you able to take in, and what was that off-ice experience like in Beijing?
I think, people had asked me or like told me before the Olympics, it's unfortunate you're experiencing your first Olympics during a pandemic. And the way I thought about it was I had nothing to compare it to. So for me, I was just so excited to experience all of it. I think the one thing that I wish would be different is, having my family there to celebrate with me. But I think in many ways they were just as involved as they would have been being there. But yeah, I think the entire experience, just, the opening ceremonies, the closing ceremonies, just living in the village, going to the the cafeteria, and meeting other athletes from different countries. It was very similar to, I think, what it would have been in other years. But like I said, I don't really have much to compare it to. So it was a blast.
And I know everyone's probably very sick of talking about COVID at this point. We're almost 2 years in, but really has become like a part of everyday life. And I know the one, I guess, if there was to wrap up what it was like, the Olympic experience playing with COVID, I think you can point to that game against Russia, where pretty peculiar, even as a fan, to watch and see the players come out with masks on. So I can imagine as a player, a little bit of a weird thing to have to adapt to during the games, but probably, again, going into these games, you knew things were going to be a little different and something like this might happen.
Yeah, I think with COVID, we've all become very adaptive and adaptable. And I think, leading into this competition, we actually practiced with masks on. That was more for safety and kind of more precautionary leading into the Olympics, but it honestly worked out in the end because we ended up having to play with N95s. But it was quite the experience. It was my first Olympic game starting in net, and it ended up being an hour delayed. So we ended up starting our game at 10:15 p.m. China time and playing my first Olympic game with a mask. So quite a memorable moment for sure. And I know, I heard from my family, everyone was wondering what was going on, how the players were in the locker room. And it's funny because in the locker room, we ended up having like a dance party. Like we had people performing and line dancing, and we were just trying to stay light and also probably stay awake at that time too. So it was honestly one of my favorite memories of the Olympic Games, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and that's, again, I thought it was an interesting, unique, very memorable moment. And again, maybe not necessarily memorable in the way you would want it to be, but, I think that's a big part of short-term competition as well. I know our coach mentor, Barry Midori, calls them thunderbolts, and probably made you just come together even more as a team.
Right. Yeah. Our team, I think we thrive on like these situations where, something comes up that we don't expect. And, it's been happening for the last couple of years, and especially this season, we've kind of had to change routes many times. And that was kind of another scenario where we're like, okay, sure, why not? We'll play with masks. Like, no big deal.
And I don't think I need to tell you the pressure that comes with wearing that maple leaf on your sweater and representing Canada in hockey, really at any level, but especially the Olympics. And on paper going in, this was a very, very good Team Canada, and really one of the most dominant performances at an Olympics I think I've ever witnessed. And of course you get to seal that performance with a gold medal against rival USA for a really outstanding TV audience as well. So what does it mean to you and for the team to have the opportunity to not only represent your country, but to be able to showcase women's hockey at that level to really the entire world?
Yeah, I think, the Olympics came at a great time for us, especially with the last couple years, with our league folding, our professional league, and then having a couple years of COVID where there's been a little bit of a lull and not having a league, but playing in the PWHPA. And it's been kind of a tough world for women's hockey. But I think having, seeing the viewership for the games and the amount of support that we had, it really reassures that what we're doing is great for the game and that we do have that support. And it's awesome to see for us. We saw a lot of support on our social medias and people reaching out and seeing how we're impacting even the youth and kind of the mindset behind women's hockey.
And how important is it for you personally to be that role model for young aspiring female athletes, not even just in hockey, but really in general, all over the province and the country, and to show them just how far the game can take them?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. And for me, every time I receive a message or hear from a young girl or meet a young girl or a young boy, just hearing how we've inspired them, I think it's incredible. Growing up, I had some people that I looked up to, but I know for the women's game, there wasn't a lot of visibility for the game. And so for me, it was generally my sister who, I lived at home with and could see, striving to reach her goals. But I think just having kids to looking up to us is important.
And of course, we'd have to tie back to your Alberta roots. And I'll admit, I did not know where Bruderheim was or hadn't really heard of it until I started working at Hockey Alberta. Not exactly a booming metropolis, but how does it feel?
Enough.
Yeah. And I hope I'm saying that right too, because again, lots of Alberta towns that I, being from Calgary, didn't know about. But how does it feel to come from those small town roots and have the opportunity to represent your small town provincially, nationally, and really all over the world?
Yeah, I mean, Bruderheim is a very small town and it's a huge hockey community. And so I feel, incredibly humbled and honored to be able to represent such a small town, but we're, a town where my game really started blooming. So just being able to even give back to the community is really important to me. And I know they were very excited about the games. I know there were viewing parties every single game, and they had signs all over the town, the Olympic rings. My dad put on fireworks. It's so fun to see how the community rallied around the games.
And how much do those Alberta roots mean to you now that you've gone on to play professionally and will continue to represent Canada, both even from your grassroots days all the way to your time with Team Alberta?
Yeah, I mean, I've met some incredible people along the way through my journey in Alberta and growing up minor hockey, playing in Alberta, and I've had so much support. And really, this is where my game really grew. And as I got older, obviously, the small details of my game got better. But where I really, became a hockey player was in Alberta. So yeah, I have so much pride in Alberta for sure.
And lastly, kind of on that note, do you have a favorite memory from your time playing in Alberta, whether it is maybe winning the Canada Winter Games or just something general, something that every time you went to the rink, you still have that fond memory that stands out in your mind?
I would say, I think Canada Winter Games is an easy one for me. Winning in 2011, I believe it was the Canada Winter Games, but it was in Halifax. But we were kind of the underdogs who ended up winning the tournament. So I think that was a pretty awesome moment for sure.
And sorry, I said last question. I do have one more though, just because I'm genuinely curious. Now that you're back from Beijing, what does the future hold, or what now even do the next couple of weeks look like for you? Obviously, being on the Hockey Alberta podcast is a big pinnacle, but what's that next step now? Being an Olympic gold medalist, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because you come back from the Olympics and it's like everything I've planned has just been to get to that pinnacle. And now it's like, now what, right? But really, it's just about celebrating with my family and kind of getting out. I'm going to head to the mountains for a few days and kind of relax a little bit. We've been competing for a while now this season, and even the last couple of years, we haven't really had a moment to digest everything. So I'm just going to take some time and celebrate with my family and then get back training eventually this summer.
Perfect. Well, this time that one was the last question, so I won't keep you too long. I know you, again, like you just said, trying to decompress, probably have a lot of other media obligations. So we can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat with us, share your Olympic experience. I know it's, if you follow us on social media, it's great because we always get to brag about the former Team Alberta goalie who's representing Canada so many times. And it's great to have an opportunity to hear your stories. So especially with it being so fresh in your mind from the Olympics. So I think I speak on behalf of everyone from Hockey Alberta and really all of Alberta when I say congratulations once again on Olympic gold, and thank you again for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
A huge thank you again to Emerance Maschmeyer for taking the time to chat with us almost immediately after returning to Canada as well. So a pretty cool opportunity to hear from an Olympic gold medalist with the experience still so fresh in her mind. So now we've covered the after part of the Olympics. Let's go to the before part. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Zach Lavin took some time to chat with us ahead of the 2022 Paralympics. So without further ado, here we go. Very excited to be joined by a member of Canada's para ice hockey team, and just a day before he heads off to the Paralympics in Beijing, it's Okotoks' own Zach Lavin. Zach, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me.
So as I just mentioned, Zach, by the time this episode airs, you'll be in Beijing with the Paralympic Games kicking off on March 5th. But as we record this, you're heading to China tomorrow. So first off, to get the obvious question out of the way, your first opportunity to represent Canada at the Paralympics. So how are you feeling knowing that you're a day away from China and just a week away from the Games?
I think now it's finally setting in. We got the COVID tests out of the way, which I was just really happy to get the negative there. That's the world we live in. But it's setting in now. I saw this morning the whole team in the Lulu gear and getting to the rink, packing up and everything. So I'm very excited and I'm honored for this opportunity.
And going back to 2019, there was an article that I read back then and again, getting ready for this interview before the Para Hockey Cup in Newfoundland about your para hockey journey, how quickly you picked up the game and how your goal was to play for Canada at the 2022 Paralympics. So reading that this morning, obviously brought a smile to my face. It must be pretty great to put your goals on paper like that and be able to look back and say, hey, I did it. Here we go.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, you look forward to making the team originally, and then you set new goals of actually, getting some solid minutes and contributing to the team. And I'm so excited to finally be named to this roster. But now it's go time. We've been training so long for this. We've been through the Zoom calls and COVID and cancellations. And I'm just really excited with this group of guys to get out there and just play some hockey.
And again, you mentioned the team and your first trip to the Paralympics, and I know it is for a number of other players as well, but also a lot of veterans on the team, both on the ice and on the bench. So how have they helped you prepare and kind of figure out what to expect in Beijing in terms of both the on-ice competition and just the experience of the games as a whole?
Yeah, it's been amazing. On my line right now, I have Greg Westlake and Tyler McGregor, both absolute legends in the sport. And they've been really awesome with navigating, the off-ice stuff to limit the distractions and then focusing on that on-ice, everything we've been training for to make sure that I'm primed and I can help them on that line.
And I know for a lot of para ice hockey players, they get into the sport after maybe experiencing an accident or disability and having previously played hockey and had hockey in their blood for a while. But if I'm not mistaken for yourself, you played pretty much every sport except for hockey until the last couple of years here.
Yeah, it was kind of like after my accident, I felt like I got a second chance at life and I just wanted a fresh start. So I ended up at Good Life Fitness in Okotoks and met Okotoks kind of famous guy there, Chris Cedarstrand. So he had kind of been on the end of his career and, I caught him in Good Life and he brought me out to the rink and introduced me to sledge hockey for the first time. And I was instantly hooked by seeing his speed and the way he could maneuver the puck. So I kind of got carried away with training with him. And when I first made the team, I had the skills and, the fitness for it. But the hockey IQ part was pretty big because I had never played hockey before. So having line mates, like I'd mentioned earlier, that are experienced has been a big help with figuring that aspect of the game out.
And I know, para hockey compared to ice hockey is a big adjustment and can be for a lot of players. Did you find too, maybe that's why, even going back to that article I read where your teammates said that you picked up the game very quickly, do you think in a way too that was almost a bit of an advantage for you being a multi-sport athlete, but not having hockey be one of those?
Yeah, I think it was big. So I had, that baseline of just being relatively fit. So that helped out. But I definitely lacked that hockey IQ, like I said. So the mentors that I had, Coach Steve Arsenault and Chris just ran at the start, and now my line mates and coaches here were huge in that actually helping me, contribute to the line and being a part of the game. But as for the off-ice training and the weightlifting, I was definitely pretty comfortable with that at the start.
And we're seeing para hockey constantly grow here in Alberta and across the country and all over the world. For yourself, how did finding para hockey and playing really help you adapt and persevere to your life as a double amputee? Yeah,
it's been huge for me. Just meeting the group of people that are in this organization and the people that have helped me, get to this level has been unreal. After my accident, there's a lot of things that you go through. And I remember even sitting at the physical rehabilitation place, learning how to use my prosthetics. And there was these two amputees that had been there for a while. And one of them had this kind of go-getter attitude and was just, really optimistic. And I remember seeing him get up and walk and get out of there pretty quick. And the other one had an attitude, kind of the poor me attitude. And I kind of felt bad for that person, tried to help him out a bit, but saw where that would take me. And just being around the people that I've had the honor of meeting through hockey has really helped me just kind of look on the bright side and just go out and get it.
And your story is a really inspirational one because just about 7 years ago, your life did change forever. And I know you've obviously had your ups and downs, but again, for those athletes out there who may already have experienced the same kind of adversity, for yourself, how did you push through that? And really, you turned a tragedy into, in this case, playing for Canada in Beijing, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, the people you surround yourself with. So I've been gifted with an amazing family that helped me out a lot. But as well, I went to seek out mentors that were successful people and people that maybe had been in similar situations as myself. And I try and learn and, model my actions off of theirs. So, try and just take the tough times and digest it, but make sure you have goals that you set forward so that you can get after those achievements.
And you're about to probably make one of your best hockey memories, but leading up to now, and maybe it is playing in Newfoundland, but do you have a specific memory or something so far that just stands out for you in your time playing para hockey, whether it's with Canada or through your training or just the people you've met along the way?
Well, there's been a lot of amazing memories. One of them I remember that was pretty unreal was playing in Paradise, Newfoundland, actually, like you mentioned. And it was my very skilled teammate, Liam Hickey's, close to his hometown there. And I remember passing him a puck as they were announcing him having just scored a goal as he sniped his second goal. And that was a pretty amazing moment to share with him in his hometown. And then just off ice, meeting all these people from cancer survivors to, people that fought for our country, and seeing how they took tragedies and, turn them into something triumphant and how they're carrying away with their lives. It's been pretty amazing to just see that and try and take what I can from their stories.
And going back to when you mentioned Chris Cedarstrand, again, another, like you mentioned, kind of famous Okotokian and a great story there, and how he took you under his wing and introduced you to the game. Is that something in the future too? Maybe one of the next steps for you is going to the coaching mentor side, or are you kind of focused on playing again in 4 years again at the Paralympics and keep on playing for Canada as long as you can.
Yeah, it's definitely focused on Beijing. We got a task at hand, and the Americans and Russians are good teams, so excited to compete there, and that's the focus. But looking past that, it would be pretty unreal to give back because of what hockey has done for me and how much it's improved my life. So I know Chris Hederstrand's working with the PX3 program with Brad LaSalle, and in the future, I think it would be pretty unreal to get into a coaching role, but not a top priority right now. Definitely want to focus on, producing on the ice with the teammates there.
Yeah, I guess after winning a gold medal, the next goal would be winning 2 gold medals, logically, right? So, yeah. Going back to the Paralympics again, because it is the pinnacle for any para-athlete, and how important are the Paralympics and really any major competition to celebrate those athletes who have overcome adversity? So how important is it for those athletes, but also to inspire, again, those athletes out there who do have a disability, to show them that they can still be a top-tier competitor?
Yeah, I think it's huge. During this pandemic as well, I think we saw a lot of younger programs losing their access to sport and seeing how detrimental that was for people's mental health and just physical well-being. And I think there's a lot of kids out there that maybe because of their disability think they won't get those same benefits through sport. But I hope when they see us out there, training 5-6 days a week and giving it our all, that they look up to that and they reach out to the grassroots programs and try to find opportunities to do the same.
Oh, and I started with an obvious question, so I'm going to end with one as well. Just what would it mean to you, both personally for your personal journey, but as a Canadian, to win a gold medal wearing that maple leaf? It's an amazing feeling just to put the jersey on. To win a gold medal in hockey playing for Canada would be the most amazing thing I think I could ever achieve in my life. I mean, there's people from coast to coast that are with you, supporting you, and it would be the most unreal moment of my life, I think. Well, we obviously wish you the best of luck. We won't keep you any longer. I imagine there's a lot still on your to-do list before you take off for China tomorrow. But thank you again so much for taking the time to do this interview with us, to share your story with us. Pretty cool to get to talk to an Olympic athlete before the games, and hopefully we can talk to you again after with a gold medal hanging around your neck.
That sounds awesome. We'll go out and give a good competition.
Again, can't thank Zach Lavin enough for taking the time out of his busy schedule the day before leaving for his first Paralympic Games. So again, pretty cool now to hear those before and after experiences from a pair of Olympic athletes. And hey, now we get to hear the experiences of a 3-time Olympian, now an Olympic broadcaster as well. But we'll get to Kara Spady's interview with Meaghan Mikkelson in just a few minutes because, as always, we're going to take a look at what's going on in the hockey world around Alberta. So here's what you need to know. And a lot going on around the province in the month of March, so bear with me here. Lots of great stuff to get through. Of course, the Hockey Alberta Provincial Championships presented by ATB are just around the corner. The first tournaments kick off on March 17th and will continue the next 2 weekends after that. So very excited after a couple of seasons off for obvious reasons from the provincials. So to be able to see so many communities have the opportunity to host the provincials again is amazing. We're very excited for that. So head to haprovincials.ca for a full list of host communities and dates. And with the 2021-22 season coming to a close, nominations are now open for the Hockey Alberta Awards, which are now also presented by ATB. So welcome ATB as the presenting sponsor of the awards. It's a great opportunity to recognize the person or people in your community who have made a major impact on the game this season. You can head to hockeyalberta.ca to find the awards nomination form. The categories include Volunteer of the Year, Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, Official of the Year, and Team of the Year. Hockey Alberta is also excited to announce the Hockey Alberta Summit, which will run June 10th to 12th in Red Deer, and would like to welcome Sprung Arenas, Stantec, and Canna as the presenting sponsors of the summit. This is a summit for all Hockey Alberta member organizations. They're invited to attend for a weekend of development, education, and networking. So information on registration for that for MHAs and members will be available soon. And you can help celebrate the class of 2022 at the Alberta Hockey Hall of Fame Induction Gala, which goes Sunday, July 17th at the Coast Hotel in Canmore. The class of 2022, which was originally introduced as the class of 2020 and then the class of 2021. Again, I don't think I need to say why that is, but they got pushed back for obvious reasons. But now we get to celebrate Bill Busick, Cassie Campbell-Pascal, Bob Clark, John Davidson, Dr. Randy Gregg, Ken Hitchcock, Jamie McCown, and the 1974-75 Lethbridge native sons. So a great induction class there. It's always a fantastic night out in Canmore. So if you'd like to join us for that, tickets for the induction gala are on sale now at hockeyalberta.ca. And when I said there's lots going on, I meant it. So if you're listening to this in time, there's a great professional development opportunity available for both current and aspiring officials, or really anyone who just wants to learn more about para-hockey, as Hockey Alberta is hosting a para-hockey officiating webinar on Thursday, March 10th at 6 p.m., and that'll be on Zoom, featuring Tara Chisholm, the head coach of Canada's national women's para-hockey team. So with the Westerns and Nationals being hosted in Alberta coming up, this is a really great opportunity for officials to officiate at some major events and, of course, add to the growing network of para-hockey officials in Alberta and across the country. It's a free seminar, and really anyone's welcome to attend, regardless of your experience as an official. So if that does interest you, and you're listening to this before March 10th, head to hockeyalberta.ca for more details. And if you're a graduating U18 player or the parent of one, Hockey Alberta is also hosting a What's Next session on Wednesday, March 16th at 7 p.m. This one will also take place on Zoom and is free, and it's a great informational session for players and parents on the different options and opportunities that lie ahead for the next step in their hockey journey, whether that's continuing to play at any level, coaching, officiating, or anything else in the hockey world. A number of Hockey Alberta staff will be leading the session to answer any and all frequently asked questions. So again, if that one interests you and it's before March 16th, head to hockeyalberta.ca for more details. A quick congratulations to Hockey Alberta's Coach of the Month for February, Cody Hughesby, the head coach of the Red Deer U11 Chiefs. So in addition to being one of Alberta's top officials, Cody's been coaching in minor hockey for the last 5 years, and make sure you get your nominations in for March for that coach who makes a difference in your community. And they could also win a $500 coaching package from Players Bench Team Apparel, just like Cody did for being the coach of the month for February. So you can find the nomination form at hockeyalberta.ca. And last but not least, we'll end with some good news for the Hockey Alberta Foundation, as they'll once again take part in the Shaw Charity Golf Classics Birdies for Kids program presented by AltaLink. So for every donation made to the Hockey Alberta Foundation through the Birdies for Kids program, the donation will be matched up to 50% by the Shaw Charity Classic. So if you'd like to donate to the Foundation's Every Kid, Every Community program through Birdies for Kids, head to hafoundation.ca for more details. And that was a lot, but that's what you need to know.
I'm here with Team Alberta alumni, professional hockey player, 3-time Olympian, broadcaster, wife, and mom, Meaghan Mikkelson. Thanks for joining us, Meaghan. How's it going today?
It's going great. Yeah, I'm sitting inside a warm house in freezing cold Alberta, so I'm doing good.
Just the love of winter, hey? Meaghan, your career is ultimately a long list of accomplishments. Give us the Cliff Notes version of how you got your start in hockey and where it's taken you.
Yeah, so I started skating when I was 4 years old. I played ringette for a few years before I started playing hockey when I was 6. I was at the outdoor rink with my younger brother, and he was having an outdoor practice with his Tim Hortons hockey team. And I saw them all playing hockey and said that was something that I wanted to do too. So from that day on, I developed a love for the game and, enjoyed playing hockey growing up. I have many great memories from growing up in St. Albert, being a part of St. Albert minor hockey. I always played all boys growing up because there was no girls teams, which is crazy to think about. Now we look at the female system and how much it's grown, and it's really wonderful to see. So grew up there. Once I graduated from high school, I got a full scholarship at the University of Wisconsin. I played 4 years there. Was lucky to win 2 NCAA Division I national championships. And then once I graduated, I was invited to my first senior national women's team camp, which is crazy to think about. It was almost 15 years ago now that I went to my first Team Canada camp. And from there, I just had a tremendous career, and I'm extremely grateful to have played in 7 world championships, 3 Olympics. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and it's crazy to look back and think that it's been 15 years. But it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's been 15 years, but it's been neat because as fans, we've all got to watch you grow up inside the game, essentially. Can you talk about the impact growing up and playing hockey in Alberta had on your career?
Yeah, it's, I think being a part of the minor hockey system, I learned how important that is for young kids and for youth, and to have development opportunities, whether it's going to tournaments or camps and things like that. So, I run a camp every summer in Okotoks because I know that growing up, how important those camps were for me to have, that exposure, and to have role models as well, I think was really important for me. I went my senior year of high school. I played at it was the NWHL, it was called at the time, for the Calgary Oval Extreme, and I played on a team with players like Cassie Campbell and Danielle Goyette, Kelly Bouchard, some of the greatest female hockey players that have ever played our game. And so I was exposed at a young age to what it took to be great and to excel in female hockey. But, some of my greatest memories come from going to Zone 5 camps and trying out for Zone 5 to play in the Alberta Winter Games, and my experiences in the Alberta Winter Games. And then from there, making Team Alberta to play in the Canada Winter Games. I know that if I wouldn't have had those experiences, I wouldn't have made it to where I am today. I think ultimately I was scouted for Team Canada when I played at the Canada Winter Games. So, I value, not only my experiences in minor hockey, but my experiences, with Hockey Alberta as well.
Yeah, and really, Hockey Alberta gave you that first taste of national competition when you were with the Team Alberta program. When you talk about role models, I know for me, I attended Shooting Star Hockey School growing up. And so we had a week that was just filled with girls hockey. And this was when the exposure was just starting to grow. So I had the opportunity to look up to girls like Cassie Campbell and Kelly Bouchard and Haley Wickenheiser, and got to see them in their element. Can you talk about some of your role models growing up and how the game has changed to now we do get to look up to see the female role models, and how you feel about being considered one of the role models?
Yeah, I think for me, and I look back and I think about camps that I went to. There was one at the University of Calgary, and I remember Haley Wickenheiser was there, and Danielle Goyette, and that was huge for me to be exposed to that. Back then there was no social media. You couldn't follow these players and see what they were up to or be inspired by what they're doing on a daily basis to become better. So you had to be, physically present with them to witness that. And I was very lucky to have that opportunity at a young age. I think I was 13 years old when I first went to that camp. And then, like I said, when I was 17 years old, getting to play on the Oval Extreme with those players and see that and the impact that it had on me. Growing up, Cassie Campbell she was always my favorite player. I wanted to be her. I wanted to play on Team Canada and do all the things that she was doing. I think she was one of the females that sort of set the standard for, getting sponsors and having more of a role in the public eye. And that was something that I really, really looked up to. now I think it's great for young females because they have more access to the female hockey players. Many of them have a presence on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. There's a lot more visibility in terms of, marketing and advertising. Companies have made it a priority to put these females out there because they understand the value in, how they serve as role models for young hockey players everywhere, not just females, but males as well. So I think that, as a female player that is now told that I'm a role model for younger players, I try to have the most positive impact that I can, because I know what a positive impact it had for me as a young player. And, it honestly, it's an honor to be able to have someone come up to you and say, you're my role model. And I think it encourages me and inspires me to want to be better every single day. Because if I am a role model for someone, what do I want that to look like? And I'm lucky that I have 2 children, that I have to serve as a positive role model for them every single day. And, I take a lot of time and pride in thinking about what do I want that to look like? What kind of person do I want to be? The work ethic, and, how do you show up every single day? So, I think it's a privilege to be able to have someone come up to you and say that, you're their role model. And I think it comes with a lot of responsibility as well.
Yeah, it's neat too, because as you mentioned, you've had a 15-year-long career as a professional player. And so now girls coming up that are reaching those levels are coming up to you and saying, yeah, you're my role model. Like, this is a surreal experience for them now. But you did mention social media, and essentially social media is a highlight reel of lives. So we've got to watch your highlights, but in your opinion, what have been the highlights of your career thus far?
Yeah, I think I agree with you on social media and it being highlights. That's why on my platforms, I try to be real and authentic and not just share the highlights, but share the struggles as well and the challenges that I face. I think that, that's something that's really important as a role model that you have to do. You have to be real and you have to be authentic and make everyone realize that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's really, really hard and life is hard. So I think there's a lot of responsibility in that as well. In terms of highlights for me, there's so many. I think like Canada Games was a big one for me. Looking back, I don't think I realized at the time how much of a highlight it would be. That was, like you said, it was my first exposure to anything like that. Canada Games is kind of like a mini Olympics in terms of, you're staying in an athlete's village, there's a food hall, and you're surrounded by different sports and different athletes, but the best in the country. So that was definitely a highlight for me. We came in 7th place, which was not an ideal finish, but I just remember how much fun we had. And I think, that's important to recognize as well. We didn't finish 1st, 2nd, or even 3rd, but we had a blast. And that's what I remember the most. And then obviously winning a national championship at Wisconsin. That was amazing. Winning gold in Vancouver on home soil. There's, for me, I was, fairly young at the time. I think I was 24 years old and, playing in my first Olympics in Canada and winning gold. I'll never forget playing in that arena. It was a sea of red and white, crazy Canadian fans, best fans in the world, in my opinion. And then also winning gold in Sochi. And for me, I was a little bit older, more experienced. And, it was a tremendous year for our team in terms of overcoming adversity. And that year, I think everyone remembers that game when we were down 2-0 with, just a couple of minutes left in the hockey game, and coming back and winning in overtime. It's a game that will go down, not just in female hockey history, but in hockey history. So being a part of that. But then also having the opportunity to play at the Olympics in 2018 with my son there. He was 2.5 years old at the time. I've stepped away from the game twice to have kids. My son's now 6.5. My daughter is 3. And some of the greatest highlights I have are just being able to play and have my children in the stands. So a lot of highlights, very different. So I don't think I could put one over top of the other.
Yeah, different, all different levels, all different reasons why they were highlights. I know you mentioned Vancouver 2010. I was there. You just talking about it like gives me the shivers because of the experience, and the atmosphere in that building was just bar none. Sochi, probably one of the best women's hockey games, comeback stories in sports, period. And then when you talk about 2018, having your son there, it's neat because I think you've actually become a role model to women in general about how you can step away from your career and come back just as successful after having kids. So I really respect that. And
thank you.
For those who aren't familiar with your story, and you talk about the not so great things that you do share on your social media platforms. But in May, you suffered a major knee injury. And it was just after they had announced the centralization roster for the Beijing Olympics. And this injury took you off the ice for a number of months. But what made you decide to rehab and try to make the Olympics for a fourth time?
Yeah, so I was named to the centralization roster on May the 13th. And then I completely blew my knee out on May the 29th, just over 2 weeks later. And it was pretty devastating. The injury was very serious. I completely severed my ACL. I tore my lateral medial meniscus, also tore my LCL and MCL. So my knee basically exploded at the worst time possible, 8 months out from the Olympics. The initial prognosis of the injury was that it was going to be 9 to 12 months before I was going to be able to get back on the ice. And, it was really tough for me because I had fought very hard to earn a spot on the centralization roster to try out for the Olympic team. And I didn't want that to be the end for me. But I think the initial glimmer of hope came from, I was, sitting at home watching a New York Islanders practice. They had it on the highlights on Sportsnet, and there was a player, Anders Lee, who's the captain of the New York Islanders, and they were talking about how he had torn his ACL just 12 weeks prior, and he was already back on the ice. So that was when I saw, an athlete that had suffered a similar injury to me, but was back on the ice so quickly. So I immediately thought, I need to talk to this guy. I need to meet with a surgeon. I need to see how quickly I can get back. And so in meeting with the surgeon, I was told that, it's possible maybe we could do 6 months. And so I asked Hockey Canada, after the initial prognosis, they said that, they weren't going to centralize me anymore. There just wasn't enough time. So I went back to them after being told that, I may be able to do it quicker if everything went absolutely perfectly. And I asked for a chance, and they gave me that chance. And going into it, they told me, that there may not be enough time still. If you make it back and you play 3 or 4 games, and ultimately I did make it back, but they said that, that still might not be enough time. And for people that aren't familiar with the centralization process, all of the players that are trying out for the Olympic team, there was 29 of us this year, moved to Calgary at the beginning of August. And it's a 5-month tryout process. So I ended up being back with the team for 10 days before they picked the team. So having a 10-day tryout versus the other players that had a 5-month tryout, ultimately it just wasn't enough time. But, for me, I think that, it's no secret that I'm getting closer to the end of my career than I am to the beginning. And, I wanted to be able to look back and, if that was the end for me, to be proud of what I had accomplished and to be able to say that I had no regrets and to know that I had given it absolutely everything that I could. So for me, it was about defying the odds. I'm the type of person that if you tell me I can't do something, I'm probably going to say, watch me do it. If you give me a challenge and you set the bar high, I'm going to do my absolute best to jump over that bar. So for me, that's what it was about. I knew that I couldn't base success on whether or not I made the team. So success for me, like I said, it was about being able to look back and say that I had absolutely no regrets. And even though I was released from the team and there just ended up not being enough time, I can absolutely say that, I'm extremely proud of what I accomplished and what I did. And I have no regrets whatsoever. But I think it proved that we're capable of accomplishing so much more than we often think we are. And the importance of setting the bar ridiculously high. Because like I said, we're capable of accomplishing a lot more than we think we are if we put our whole body, mind, everything that we have into accomplishing something.
Yeah. And like you said, the centralization process is long and it's rigorous and it's not for the faint of heart to begin with. So to come into that with a devastating injury that you had and be able to come back, I really respected the mindset and your decision on how you reacted to not being named to the team, just in that your success wasn't measured by making the team. And I think that in hockey, so much of our goals are based around, and in sports in general, so many of our goals are based around the success of that public success and having our name etched on the roster, being in the record books, winning gold. But that's not necessarily it. There's small successes in the game. There's bigger successes than just being named to the team. But fast forward to the Olympics and a new door opened for you. And you got to join a former teammate and fellow Albertan, Shannon Zabados, on the CBC broadcast for the Beijing 2020 Olympics as a women's hockey analyst. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was a whirlwind. I think it was the day after I was released and I got a call from CBC with the offer to go on the broadcast and cover women's hockey. And I had a little bit of experience. I was on the panel with Sportsnet for some Edmonton Oilers games last year. So I had a little bit of exposure to broadcasting and being an analyst and what that was like. So I knew that I loved it. And it was something that I wanted to pursue further. So, to have that opportunity so quickly after everything that I had gone through and everything that had happened, it was something that I had to jump at right away. And it ended up, it ended up being an incredible experience. Broadcasting is a lot harder than it looks like on TV. I think people make it look easy, but it was a challenge. It was an opportunity for me to do something different and to start pursuing something else outside of playing hockey, but still within the game that I was really passionate about. So it was a whirlwind. I'm extremely grateful to CBC for having given me that opportunity. I remember the first time I walked on the set and I looked over to Zabby and I said, this kind of feels like the first time we walked into the opening ceremonies. Like, it's just so surreal and you can't believe you're there and, you get goosebumps. And to be able to do it with one of my, great friends and longest standing teammates, it was really special. So we had a ton of fun with it. I did have to pivot really quickly and make sure that I embraced my new role, recognized that I was on a new team. I was no longer, with Team Canada. It was Team CBC. We had our own team there, and to just really embrace that role and to provide viewers with insight that they found valuable and interesting and entertaining. So I absolutely enjoyed it. I think it's opened up some more doors for me as well. So I'm excited to see where the broadcasting path takes me.
Yeah, it's exciting. And like I said, you really do embody hockey is for life. Hockey is your life. And
it really is, yeah.
It's a neat step to take from playing the game to being an analyst. And I think that to do it with Zabby, to do it at CBC on the for the Olympics, it's kind of the same mentality as an athlete. Like, you have to come in, you're up all night because you were doing the American Games that were usually in the morning. You're still in Canada, so technically it's still our time zone. and you were trying to balance being a mom too. So it was, very neat to watch you guys on the panel. And I think you guys did a great job of not only still cheering for your fellow Canadians, but bringing a really good perspective and outlook on the other teams as well. And that's the toughest part, I think, is you have to kind of stay neutral when you're doing the analyzing. But
yeah.
Now you have seen the game from a couple different angles, and your journey is proof that there's room in the game for women. How important is it in growing the game to have female representation at all levels and in a variety of roles?
Oh, it's huge. For me, growing up, I always wanted to be the GM of an NHL team. And that was something that I never vocalized. I never talked about it because I never thought that it was possible. But now recently you see, women like Emily Castonguay, Cami Granato, and what they're doing as assistant general managers with the Vancouver Canucks. You look at Haley Wickenheiser with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there are these trailblazing women that are leaving their mark in the game at an extremely high level and showing that they are great hockey minds first. And that's something that I think a lot of organizations are now embracing and are increasingly, starting to try to incorporate into their organizations. And it's extremely important. So for me, seeing those women doing what they're doing, it's extremely inspiring. And it inspired me to be vocal about, my passion and my aspirations and my goals. So I think that, continuing to do that, continuing to push the envelope and to show that we are great hockey minds and that we do have a place in the game and we have a place at the highest level, I think is, it's extremely important.
Yeah. And just as you're saying, like, you're a role model already to so many, but you're talking about your role models now in Emily and Haley and Cami. And so it's very neat to see how that representation is still so important at all levels of the game. And female hockey continues to grow. The PWHPA is still pushing for a viable, sustainable professional league for females. We're starting to see women in the managing and scouting roles in the NHL. National organizations are investing in their female programs. And the Olympic numbers don't lie. People want to watch female hockey. So how do we continue to build off the momentum of the game right now?
I think continuing to recognize that women have a place in the game, that we deserve to be there. I think the largest component of that is we do need a professional women's league. The time is now to build off of the momentum from the Olympics. We say it every 4 years, but I think right now we have the most momentum that we've ever had. So for there to be a professional women's league, there needs to be support. There needs to be belief. There's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes by the PWHPA and Jana Hefford and a lot of really incredible individuals that have put their life into creating a professional women's league. But I really do believe that that's the only way that we're going to keep up momentum and that we're going to continue to grow the game. We're at a pivotal point where the game has grown so much. Like I said, when I was young growing up, there was no female hockey in St. Albert. We didn't even have a team. And now there's, dozens and dozens of teams. And the registration numbers they continue to climb, but there needs to be a professional, legitimate women's hockey league in order for us to continue this momentum.
Yeah. And like you said, we say it every 4 years, but right now, people are watching our female athletes. There's so many avenues to follow, to support, to watch. If you could tell the young girls who are looking up to you anything, what would it be?
I would say to believe in yourself and to set the bar high. Those are two things I think that, to believe that you can achieve what you want, but that no goal is ever too lofty and the bar is never too high. And, we have an incredible amount of potential. You just have to believe in yourself.
Lastly, Meaghan, on March 8th, it's International Women's Day, a day to celebrate women in their growth and success in all their roles. I've talked to you a bit about this before, but how do you balance all your responsibilities and your roles as a professional athlete, career woman, wife, mom, hockey mom?
Well, the real answer is I do it one day at a time. I take it one day at a time. But, I see myself as no different from any other working parent out there. We wear a lot of hats. There are a lot of different roles. But I think mostly I just try to realize that, I get to do everything that I get to do. I get to be a mom. I get to train. I get to be an athlete. I get to do the broadcasting, and just, how fortunate I am to get to do everything that I do. And in terms of balance, I'm really honest with myself and checking in every day. If I feel like my plate's too full, then, I offload a bit and make sure that I'm taking time to take care of myself. They say you can't give from an empty cup. So I always try to make sure that I'm taking time every single day to fill up my own cup, because in the end, I'm able to fulfill, all of my other roles much, much better. I'm a better mom. I'm more productive if I'm filling up my own cup. So that would be a great piece of advice, I think, to make sure that you're taking time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, self-care is so important, especially in this age where we are all so busy. But Meaghan, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I do want to wrap it up to respect your time mostly. But thank you for taking the time today to join us. It means a lot as you continue to inspire the next generation, and best of luck in what's next for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So a huge thank you once again to Meaghan Mikkelson and Cara Spady for that interview. I think we all know the impact Meaghan has made and will continue to make on women's hockey in Alberta and really across Canada and the whole world. So really great to hear about her role models as well, the players that she looks up to, and the way she tries to be a role model for the next generation of female athletes. And yeah, with that, episode 21 of the Center Ice podcast comes to a close. One last thank you to all of our guests, Emerance Maschmeyer, Zach Lavin, and Meaghan Mikkelson, as well to Cara Spady, and of course, a huge stick tap for producer Steve, keeping things going behind the scenes. So thank you for tuning in once again. I'm Ted Emmett, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Center Ice podcast. For this episode and more, head to hockeyalberta.ca. If there's a topic you'd like covered on an upcoming episode, email info@hockeyalberta.ca.